Thank you very much, Jamie, and welcome President Allen, and thank you, Kathy Rossi. As Jamie mentioned, this is going to be a series. This is the inaugural event in our series, in our higher education series. We really felt it was important as a Chamber of Commerce to recognize the role that our higher institutions play in Delaware, the impact they have on our community, the role they play as centers of academic excellence, as economic development drivers, as workforce development, key players in the area of workforce development. And so we decided to put together this series and talk to each of the presidents of the higher institutions, higher education institutions in Delaware. So we're really pleased to have President Allen with us. And I have to throw in that he is a former Wallace Johnson Community Service Award winner from the Newcastle County Chamber of Commerce. And boy, very early in your career to get that award, President Allen, and I'm sure that we'll probably owe you another one in a few more years, is my guess. And we're also really pleased to have Kathy Rossi serving as the well, what's the right word? The interviewer today. For those of you who may or may not know Kathy, it's a very long and distinguished career in media as a journalist, an on-air personality, and went on to be communications director for Governor Jack Markell, and now is with AAA Mid-Atlantic. So we love whenever the opportunity arises to tap into Kathy's skills as an interviewer. So be prepared for those tough questions, President Allen. She's good at it. So without any further, I'm sorry.
That I know.
So without any further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Kathy Rossi. Kathy, take it away. And you're on mute, Kathy, so you have to unmute yourself.
There we go. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Tony. Thank you, Bob, Jamie, everyone at the Chamber for hosting this series and for really opening a window into our prominent educational institutions in Delaware and their leadership. I'm happy to interview Dr. Tony Allen. And when I realized that Tony had been president for a mere 8 weeks or so before COVID, wow. I was reminded actually of a saying that my favorite high school teacher told me. And that is, unless a man is prepared for his chance, that chance will only make him ridiculous.
Wow.
A great chance is worth to a man exactly what his preparation enables him to make of it. Wow. And so, Dr. Tony Allen, you were prepared for this role at this time in history. And we believe that you are uniquely positioned to be ready to serve as leader of Del State at this unique time in its academic life. So my opening question is simply, how's it going?
Hey, Kathy, great to be with you. Great to see you, actually, as well as Bob and Jenny. I appreciate this opportunity. And it's going pretty well, everything notwithstanding. I can tell you many people have said, oh, what a bummer to come into this position and then have COVID-19 upon you, and then have that with all the racial unrest that has unfolded throughout the year. I actually think I wouldn't have wanted to start any other way, because I know that Delaware State had a real opportunity to speak into the moment, to make sure that we were protecting our kids, particularly those from vulnerable populations in a unique time, and also to make sure that we raised our voice around those issues we think are important to our students and to our university community. So for me, it was a real interesting time, but one I did actually feel prepared for, given my long history in the place I call home, and feel like we are speaking into the moment every day and doing that on behalf of our faculty, staff, and students.
So we're going to cover several topics today. The first one, let's start with classes actually began at Del State on August 25th, I understand. Starting university is a major milestone in anyone's life. and so many aspects to residential or academic life have been upended. So you're challenged with freshmen and upperclassmen in trying to somewhat routinize and normalize the abnormal right now. That's a tall order in a challenging and changing and really abnormal social environment. So how do you run classes, continue to do research, and social distance student activities? Tell me how you're approaching all of that big picture.
Let me take you back a little bit to the spring. It's a great question. When we had to send all of our students home, we thought it was really important for us to figure out a way to get them back to campus when the moment was right and it was safe as possible. In fact, we kept 200 students on campus in the spring who were otherwise homeless or from some very vulnerable populations. And we thought it was not effective or thoughtful for us to put them back in those circumstances. So we had some experiences with students on campus during this moment in the spring. As we started, we went down the aisle of building a reopening plan we called Together. And at the heart of that plan is a testing protocol. We have a relationship with a place called Testing for America that has given us a full protocol for faculty, staff, and students. So all of our university community had to be tested before they came back on campus. Once they got on campus, they were tested. And now we are testing twice a week. As a part of that plan, we are also what we call operating a hybrid model, which means 85% of our courses are in the virtual fashion, and about 15% are in person. Don't think of those as mostly those courses related to labs. And then there is mandatory mask wearing. You can't be on campus without a mask. If you are positive for COVID as a student, we actually have a residence hall fully dedicated to those who need quarantine and isolation. And then what heartens me is the students. The students want to be here. And I told them the message is going to have to come from you, not me. Why it's important to be responsible, behave appropriately, and take care of each other in our Together plan. So they have created any number of videos that you do just that, where they're talking to each other through Instagram and Twitter, all those things that I have an account for, but I don't necessarily know how to use all the time. It's really resonating with them. So we feel good about where we are. I should say, if you have some wood there, Kathy, Bob, you should knock on it because it is everyday kind of experience. But I do feel like it represents the university quite well. We couldn't have done it without Testing for America.
Relative to COVID, Tony, most of us in the non-academic world are working virtually from home. And, you know, unless it's by choice and desirable, perhaps church, the grocery store, limited travel by choice by car. So we keep adjusting until we get to the other side of this. Among all the things you talked about, what's the greatest challenge you face on campus among your staff, your students, your professors, et cetera?
You know, really, it's, I'd say mental stress. I think that goes unnoticed and a little underrepresented as well. I mean, this notion of isolation and of doing things in a way that you just haven't seen before, I do think takes its toll. It certainly has taken its toll on me. I remember in the first couple of weeks of COVID, you know, I was sitting at the university virtually by myself for many weeks, and that can be isolating in some ways. And I imagine, as a matter of fact, I know that many of our students were going back to situations where there was isolation, where they always couldn't get broadband, for instance, where they had to share time with their brothers and sisters who might be in other educational settings, where they sometimes had to become the breadwinner. And I do feel like those kinds of things over time do at least hit at some of your mental capacity and faculty. And it's important for us. One of the reasons we brought our students back, so we had a sense of that for ourselves and for them. And we wanted to create as much a community as is humanly possible so that they knew they had the kind of social supports, mental health supports, and academic supports that effectively are going to get them through the finish line here. As you know, we're an HBCU, so about 50% of our population is low income and 2/3 are first generation college students. So it's very important that we keep them on the right path and keep them as close to us as is possible. But I can see some of that strain has seeped into the entire university community, which is why it's very, very important that we take care of each other in a much different way than we ever have before.
We know deeply that you are striving to empower students and help them discern their strengths, their vocations, to learn, grow, develop fortitude, to find their purposes in life and be fulfilled by them. And that demands a fair and equal society in which each individual human being matters. Their rights are respected, recognized, and protected. So everyone is optimally empowered to reach their full potential, which brings me to this question. Can you share how you are handling the range of emotions, given the myriad of kind of the unsettled nature of where we are right now, not only with COVID, but with social justice issues, given the myriad of experiences, both positive and negative, that your students have had in their lives? And I think the shared urgency that we all feel to be better than we have been as a country and as a society, to eradicate the evil of racism, and to ensure that people are treated equally in every setting. It's a big and heavy subject, but it's on everyone, it's weighing on all of us. And I think you just shared that it's weighing on your students there.
You know, Kathy, that's probably the toughest question I've had to face over my first 8 months as president here at Del State. What's important to know is when we first started on this journey, it was all COVID all the time. So I literally still have a Tuesday forum. I'm going to my 27th university forum. I do one every Tuesday at 11 to really update folks on what's happening at the university community. And end of May through June, you saw many things happen around social unrest here. And here's how I would describe it. Those things, particularly as it relates to law enforcement and sometimes the engagement of poor behavior that disproportionately affects Black and brown people, that happens a lot. But we were all sitting at home, confined to the limits of our surroundings, and we're watching all at the same time. And while it was painful to see it, Jacob Blake, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and many more, I think it was important for the country to see too. And we went right to work. So those Tuesday forums, they stopped being COVID-related forums, and we actually put law enforcement folks we knew. We have a couple of experts who are alum, including Colonel Bond, who's the chief of Newcastle County Police, brought them together with our students to have a conversation around what folks were really feeling, recognizing that it's important that we find shared ground and do that together. The second thing we did, there were many protests. I actually went to a couple of protests in Wilmington and Middletown. And my students told me, Mr. President, we love your support, but we just want your support. So I have a motto in my mind. I want to show up and shut up and start listening to the younger generation and really seeing what's on their minds and how we could move the agenda forward. And then two other things happened. I spent a fair amount of time writing to many, many CEOs and really imploring them to think of, from a solution standpoint, why HBCUs are so relevant. Because I do believe that in the midst of all of this, education reform is critically important. And those institutions who can provide access to education that's going to change life trajectory is one of the key tools. It's necessary, certainly not sufficient, but it's completely necessary. And a place like Delaware State is really emblematic of that. And then the last thing we just did a couple of weeks ago, the Student Government Association, they actually wanted us to do three things. One was to have ongoing dialogue, students and our university police informally. And this is the students' idea. They said, before there's ever a situation, we just want to get to know law enforcement, which I thought was a really important model, not just for the university, but really for the country. The second one was they wanted to make a symbolic show of support around Black Lives Matter. So they are doing a symbol on campus soon here that'll have Black Lives Matter there. And their conversation, my Student Government Association, interestingly enough, is very diverse. So it was good to hear all kinds of voices talking about why that symbol would be important for them. And then the final thing was this notion of developing a global institute for civil rights and racial equity, which we have just developed. and are now going to lots of different communities and saying, look, when we're going through these challenges, lots of things are going to happen that are going to get us upset, to force us to face real realities. But that's not as important as when everything is quote unquote normal. When it's normal is the time to really be engaged around how we think of each other, what our experiences are, what the inequities are in our society that prohibit us from being a more perfect union. So our goal is to really have this as a part of who we are and be able to extend it to nonprofits, corporations, and other and government entities that really believe that we can do things together. And the more we understand our differences, the better we're able to utilize those differences for the greater good. So that's been the approach. I'm glad to say a lot of it's been student driven, and I'm really proud that we're emblematic in that way and are trying to carry that torch forward.
Thank you, Tony. You have a very unique role to play, both as a university president and also as a university collectively. Yep. So speaking of diversity and strength, certainly the single biggest announcement occurred this summer for you, and that was the agreement to acquire Wesley College in Dover between now and June of 2021. This is an unprecedented move, as no historically Black college or university has ever acquired a non-historically Black college or university. There are likely many synergies and many differences. So can you characterize this and where you are with receiving the necessary approvals from the appropriate governing bodies, as I understand it, the U.S. Department of Education and Middle States Commission on Higher Education?
Sure. Well, we're very excited about the Wesley acquisition. Another question I got throughout the summer is, why in the middle of a pandemic, Tony, would you try to take on this opportunity? And my response really was because it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. It wasn't going to come our way again. As you know, Wesley is literally 2 miles up the road from us. They're actually a minority serving institution, which is emblematic, federal standard, very much like we're an HBCU. They're what you call an MSI. They weren't always that way, obviously, but they've grown to look like our students in a very, very real way. We also thought their academic programs were in good health and were very emblematic of how we do business as well. So when we thought about all of the rationale for doing it, we said, look, if we can build our footprint, really get another student body that looks like our students already, and contribute to the ongoing development, economic development of downtown Dover in general, and in specific in Kent County in general, why wouldn't we do it? So we talked with President Clark and his team and obviously reached the agreement. To your point, there are a few hurdles. Those hurdles also relate to our regulatory body. You mentioned the Middle States Commission. We actually have to apply, which we are doing here in short order. They will go do a site visit for us and a peer review study that'll probably take somewhere between 6 and 7 months. There is some money to be raised as well to support the effort. We've been very fortunate to have really, really strong support from our congressional delegation, each one of them, in going forward with this. And as we go forward and build capacity, we're thinking about what the new college might look like. And that'll be one of our existing, one of our 5 existing colleges today. We believe potentially with the focus in the health and behavioral sciences area, which I believe will allow us to rival many similarly situated institutions in the region. So there were lots of good reasons to do it, lots of good reasons to do it now. And I do believe that it will, when you talk about, I would like to say we are Delaware State University, ''S. And when I think about that, it's really important for us to make sure that we have expanded our footprint in a thoughtful, significant way, that we really are part of the economic vitality of Delaware, and that we're doing that in short order to advance the many students that we serve. And we think the Wesley acquisition does just that.
This may be a little early to ask this question, but I'll ask it anyway. Will we just have Delaware State University in September 2021 and the name Wesley will go away, or?
No, I actually think there's a lot of significant brand equity to keep the Wesley name. How that unfolds for us, we're not sure, but I'm very committed to creating that brand equity as we move forward here. So there are lots of configurations, as you know, across the country about how you do that. But as I talked to President Clark and his chairman, Bill Strickland, before they could even say it, I wanted folks to know that the value in the history, tradition, alumni, and presence of Wesley, I think is very, very important to Delaware and to Dover. So I can't tell you how it's going to look in the end, but I can tell you that we will definitely preserve the Wesley brand.
Okay. I have one more question, and then I think we'll open it up for anyone who has a question that's on the forum. And that is, you have a lot of active academic work, you have research, you now have the acquisition of Wesley occurring, a lot of dynamic activity at a time when there's lots of other things happening in our worlds right now. So I think the business community would like to know how they can support Del State, how they can work with Del State, what opportunities there might be. And it's a broad question that you could answer in any one of a number of ways. But knowing that there are, this is the Chambers Forum and there's a lot of business partners listening in today, what would some of your messages and opportunities be for them?
So that's a great question, Kathy. I guess what I would say here is when many businesses, and you know I have a business background, so many businesses talk about diverse talent pipelines. I really believe that Delaware State University, if you are very serious about that, should be your first choice. We continue to produce students of color from a lot of different disciplines. More teachers of color come from Delaware State University. Accountants of color come from Delaware State University. STEM majors of many disciplines come from Delaware State University. So if you're really thinking about your talent pipeline, then you plug into Delaware State, I'd argue, before you plug into any other of my sister institutions here. That's first order. Second thing I'd say is when you think about how to do that, there are a number of things we do across any academic year. You know, I won't even talk about the career fairs because that happens really with every institution in our state. We have a thing called Deep Day. It's actually the Delaware Executive Exchange Program. We've run it for many years now. It allows the executives to really take time with our students and learn them for a full day of activity. That gives you a much different feel than anything you would do as quote unquote a career fair or something like that. So I think Deep Day, DEEP, is very important for folks who want to be involved. And then finally, I'd say, again, given the moment we are in, I can tell you that this Global Institute of Racial Equity and Social Justice, I believe, is going to be a game changer for folks who are serious about that work. And we need partners, not only to support it with their resources, but really to expose us to some of the challenges we know they're facing in their various workplaces. And we believe that we have the talent, particularly as it relates to the intellectual capital of our faculty, to solve some of the state's most pressing problems. And utilizing that in a more thoughtful, consistent, coherent way is what Delaware State wants to be for the state and communities we serve. So plugging in those ways, recognizing who we are. Remember, we are $23 million research portfolio, $130 million budget, 5,000 students. And as I said, Delaware State University, you want to plug into us if you have a sense of trying to build a place that looks like the communities that we all serve. So I'm very, very bullish on where Delaware State has been historically and certainly where we're going.
Very good. Capitalizing on many opportunities in this challenging time. So we'll open up the forum to any questions that anyone has. Jamie, I'm just going to ask, I don't see anything on my screen, but I don't know if that's because there aren't any yet or because I'm just not seeing them.
We do have a few questions that have come in. One, this was actually submitted beforehand, and this is from Mark Talmo of Emory Hill, and it's very specific to facility upgrades and things like that. He is wondering if there's a comprehensive master plan in place for facility upgrades, modifications, or any sort of new construction for the future at DSU.
You know, we did our last master plan in 2014. We're getting close to a deal to reimagine that master plan now. So the answer is, and I mean in the next couple of days, we'll be about the business of beginning to think through our next master plan. I can tell you that the Wesley acquisition in particular also gives us opportunity with an additional 50 acres of land and 20 buildings. That was one of the particular important points for us because we are growing fairly significantly. Just to give you a sense, over the last 10 years from an enrollment perspective, we've grown about 40% in enrollment. Historically, over that same time period, U.S. college enrollment has gone down about 5.5% the other way. So when you think about space as it relates to residence halls, we need more space. When you think about our facilities as it relates to our faculty's ability to do research, we need more space. And we think that we can leverage many of sort of our existing resources and physical resources in a different way than we have before. So I'm excited about what the new master plan will unfold for us. It's being done in concert with our strategic plan. So we're very excited about what that means for our future.
Thank you. And then we also have a question from Bruce Rushton. He is the owner of the Growth Coach, and I also have to add he is an ambassador for the Chamber of Commerce. And he is asking, what is DSU doing to prepare students for the jobs of the future? Not just the jobs and industries that we see today, but jobs and industries that may emerge in the next 10 years.
Great question. I would say on balance, well, I'm excited about all my colleges, but the College of Business has really done some important work in that area. I can tell you that a lot of what we've been thinking about is entrepreneurship without respect to discipline. So we did not have an entrepreneurship program before. Dean Michael Cassidy is beginning that process now. That'll give us a good sense of what our students want to do and how they want to do it on their own. We also did get a couple of grants from EDA around building capacity for new streams of new work. And I've done a little of that work with Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester, who has the same thought about sort of the next jobs coming forward. So what we're trying to do is align those particular efforts with our academic disciplines. There's something we call the Garage that we just started on campus as well. And that's literally in a basement in the College of Business, where we've re-outfitted and reimagined these notions of design thinking and how you come up with creative ideas to solve some of the world's most pressing problems. So my sense is we're on a course of building capacity for what we think the new economy will look like. The College of Business is leading the way for us in that regard, but all of them are thinking about that more critically in their areas of discipline.
Along that same theme, Tony, when you came into the role in January, reputationally, what do you think Delaware State University was most known for in terms of academic programs? And what would you like it to be most known for in your vision moving forward?
Well, you know, historically it was a teacher's college, as I think everybody knows. So a lot of the more social sciences is where Delaware State had its strength. Now, when I say that, I mean that from a historical perspective. The reality of the last 20 years is we've grown tremendously as a comprehensive research university. And the STEM majors in particular have grown gangbusters across a number of disciplines. And I think on balance, we are known for how we're able to put out students who are from biology, chemistry, et cetera. But the same is true, you know, the teacher's college philosophy, that holds water too. We still produce many more teachers, many more social workers, et cetera. But my reputation, when you think about the reputation, what I think we have always said, and we want to be the first choice for employers, the first choice, regardless of the particular skill set. And I'll give you one example, Kathy. You said, what are we most known for? This is not one that we're most known for, but think of this. We produce more pilots of color at Delaware State University than any other place in the country. So we have our own fleet of aircraft right at Cheswold, about 10 miles up the road with the Delaware River and Bay Authority. We've had an aviation management program since 1986. And we are building real capacity as a result. And most people, when I say that, had no idea that we would even own planes, let alone be a real producer of aviators in the country. So those kinds of gyms, and I have a couple of gyms like that across Delaware State, I do want to raise not as what I want to be known for, but as an example of what we're already doing. So I tell people we don't want to be the little black school behind the brick wall in Dover. We really want to open ourselves up to all the things that are happening at the university and then plan for our future from a position of real strength. That takes a lot of storytelling, as you know, and it's the opportunity for me to extend the brand in that way has really been my focus over this last year. And I think people are beginning to understand that there's a lot more here than the Delaware State they might have known when they grew up, or certainly are coming to now.
I see there's at least 3 or 4 more questions in the queue, Tony. So one that sort of connects to that, is there a mentorship program at Delaware State University to help prepare students for their career and for corporate America in general?
Several mentorship programs. They normally come through companies. I can tell you that JP Morgan Chase in particular has been really strategic. They actually did a takeover day at the university too in the last 2 years. And that has enabled them to connect directly with students and not only just help them from a mentorship perspective, but actually give them real opportunities, mentorship to internship to actual employment. We have a couple of companies like that just kind of adopt the university en masse and then create unique one-on-one relationships as we move forward. So I always say if there is an interest from a company to do that, we are very open to it. And we have a little bit of a playbook about how best to do that across the university. Sometimes people think, well, if I'm in business, I only want to work with the College of Business. But what you'll find is there's talent across the university, and we're small enough to make sure that you can get a really high quality student that you can spend time with from the moment they walk in the door to the moment, hopefully, you hire them.
You opened, this is from another participant, Bob. You recently opened the Newcastle County campus. How is that transition going? And I have to be honest with you, I have not heard much about this. So if you can share with everyone where it is, how you're handling it in the COVID environment as well, and sort of where you're going with it.
Sure, it's right on Kirkwood Highway. We call it our Kirkwood Highway site. It's an old armory. We've had it for about 5 or 6 years now.
Oh, yes, I do remember that. That was a while ago, yeah.
And the former Secretary of Labor, Dr. Patrice Gilliam Johnson, who's our Dean of Graduate Adult and Continuing Studies, runs the shop up there. And she does a couple of things really across the state, but in that campus in particular, we run a lot of adult certification programming. So we have upwards of about 60 certifications that we run across the state, but particularly out of that site. We also run our online programming from there as well. We have professional degrees in business administration, social work, sports administration, and public administration, and all those efforts run out of there as well. And then Patty's building some discipline for it to really be a community entity as well. So you'll see often that there are many organizations that use the facility for their own work. Sometimes that's tied directly to Delaware State, sometimes it's not. And then finally, our cooperative extension programming also works out of there. So they spend a fair amount of time housed there, bringing young students in K-12 during the summer and extending themselves across the Newcastle County community. So it really is a great gift for us. You might remember we were in downtown Wilmington for many years, but did not have the space to do all the kind of work we're able to do today.
Very good, thank you. Another question from Deb. Is Delaware State a trauma-informed organization? If so, what strategies and techniques have you implemented? And if not, what are your thoughts about how DSU might become trauma-informed?
We actually have a trauma-informed certification program. We just started early January. I started really thinking about that with Dr. Gwen Scott Jones, who's the chair of our psychology department, and her dean, Marche Horton, probably 2.5 years ago. That came to us from a guy named Charles Madden and Dr. Alvin Turner, a psychologist. And really what it was about for us was being able to train the trainer. So our trauma-informed certification is really about making sure that those who are working with vulnerable populations, I really have a sense of their own trauma first before they're able to connect with those folks they know are experiencing trauma as well. So Gwen started that program, as I said, at the beginning of this year. We are looking to extend it largely to K-12 schools, but not exclusively. So we are looking at nonprofits who work with other vulnerable populations as well. And we're hoping to get some momentum really post the COVID crisis.
Very good. Another question from Lisa Lindsay. How is the COVID-19 Emergency Relief Fund progressing? DCR, and I apologize, we have a lot of acronyms at AAA, I can tell you that. DCR is making, I'm not quite sure who DCR is, and I apologize, Lisa Lindsay, for that, but DCR, maybe you know, Tony, is making a donation to assist this need.
It's the Delaware City Refinery.
Oh, of course. Oh, I should know that because it's Lisa Lindsay.
Well, first, Lisa, thanks for asking the question. Kathy, I was talking to you about the beginning of the COVID crisis for us when we had to keep those 200 students on campus. We immediately thought we need to build our food pantry up because they're going to need some real support services. But what we found was that not only would those students needed support, but many of the students that went home were having all of these different kinds of experiences that they were not expecting. And I'll give you one story and try to get to the answer quickly. So we had one student, sophomore from Delaware, really was the only caregiver for her two grandparents. Both grandparents died of COVID. She had no resources to support their funeral arrangements. So was really looking for some support from us. There were many students that we didn't allow them to come back in campus, so they left a lot of their technology in their rooms. So as we started to uncover what was happening, we said we need an emergency relief fund quickly. And we raised about $1.2 million in about 8 weeks or so. I imagine a lot of chamber members, and thank you all for doing it, were a part of those contributions like DCR. And we've been able to help about 800 of our students, giving all that money away. I can tell you that the need, though, is great. Even though we were able to give support to about 800 of our students, about 1,500 of them still had real needs, and those needs ranged. So we are still going about the business of continuing to raise support for them even during this moment. But it was really an opportunity for us to say to the community, we need your help, and the community responded in full force. We were very proud of that.
We don't have any additional questions, so I will move to a final question unless I see anything pop up. I understand your motto, your philosophic approach, Tony, is the power of we. So tell me what this means at this moment in time for handling COVID, social justice strength, the acquisition of another school. And how can those in this community listening to you today help?
You know my history, Kathy. I have been in the business of community engagement, regardless of what institution or sector I've been in. And a lot of that has to do with my mentor, who you all know, Jim Gilliam, who was my best friend. And he always said, everybody will have their moment. Most people won't recognize their moment because it's usually about someone else, not them. Tony, don't miss your moment. So as I got into this particular role, I think about it all the time, not missing our moment. And I believe that while this pandemic was awful, is awful, and is affecting many, many people, including me, who I've lost a couple of family members as a result. And the other pandemic around social justice is continuing to affect many, many people. I really believe it's America's moment. And what we have to do in that moment is look squarely in the eye to each other, talk candidly about both what we share in common and what our differences are, and try to move an agenda forward on things we all know to be the right thing, that we all should care about each other, treat each other thoughtfully, protect each other, stand up for one another. All those things are important. And as I relate that back to the university, a lot of that stuff you begin to learn in college. So I always say, look, I have 5,000 young people that I have a unique opportunity to make sure that they are not only exceptional at their field, but they're good citizens. And when we think about how to be good citizens, I talked about Testing for America. Like I said, we're doing testing twice a week now, right? So that's thousands, literally 4,000 or 5,000 of tests a week. You know who coordinates all that? Our students. They're doing that, Department of Public Health, our student athletes, our fraternities and sororities. You know why they know that to be important? Because they know that the only way we get through this is together. So instilling that kind of philosophy in everything we're doing, I believe is important to not only who we are, but I hope who we are to become as a community, as a university, as a country. So that is my general philosophy around the power of we, but it's really about what Jim Gilliam taught me many years ago. It's our moment.
Very good. We do have, we also offered you our sorrow for your loss, Tony. Some panelists have chimed in with that, who are participants today. So I know that's a collective sentiment.
I appreciate it.
My mom, who's 85 and lives with my husband and I, when we're talking about an academic institution, and given what you just shared, I will close out on this word and then hand it back over to Jamie. And thank you very much for everything you've shared with us today. My 85-year-old mom, when I kind of interviewed her, and, you know, we talked about, you know, you're in your later years, Mom, and she said, you know what, I must still have something to either teach or learn.
Mm.
And I think we all have things to learn from one another in this lifetime. And so we wish you the very best. Good luck with all of the challenges that you have, that you are so very prepared to encounter and to succeed on, Tony. And thank you, thank you, Newcastle County Chamber of Commerce. Good luck to Delaware State University. Thank you for hosting today's forum and giving us this platform. So Jamie, I'm going to turn the mic back to you.
Yeah, if Jamie doesn't mind, I'm gonna jump in real quick. And again, Kathy, thank you so much for all the great questions and for the bringing that element of professionalism, as you always do, to this process. We really appreciate it. And President Allen, you know, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to be with us. We hope that I hope that you will consider our chamber a champion for DSU, as a potential partner for DSU. And any way that we can be of assistance as you work to fulfill your vision for DSU, please call on us at any time. And I have to, before I lose everybody, I dropped the ball on one of my major responsibilities when I opened the program, and that was to thank the sponsors that made today possible. So if I may do that real quick: Allen Insurance, Chemours, DCR, Delaware City Refinery, thank you, Lisa Lindsay, Fitzgerald Consulting, JP Morgan Chase, TD Bank, and the Newcastle County Chamber of Commerce Benefits Connection. And that's the program that brings insurance products to our many businesses throughout the community. So thank you to all of our sponsors. Thanks for all of our participants today. And again, President Allen, thank you very much, and best wishes for great success. And so with that, Jamie, if you have anything to close out before we end this?
No, just thank you all very much, and please be on the lookout for our next installment of this series. Again, it is on the 28th. It's 2 weeks from today, with the president of Goldie Beacom, and we will continue to have these throughout the fall and into the winter with the different presidents of all the universities in the area. So please be sure to keep your eyes open for those, and we hope everyone has a great day. Thank you so much.